Okay, let's unpack this. If you are currently following Manchester United under Ruben Amorim, you are probably living in a state of permanent, high-octane anxiety.
That's one way of putting it.
The football is simultaneously the most exhilarating and probably the most terrifying thing I think I've seen in years.
It's cardiac football, isn't it? And, no single result really sums up the current identity of the team better than that recent, utterly chaotic 4-4 draw away against Bournemouth.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a spectacle, certainly, but a deeply, deeply revealing one.
It tells you everything you need to know, that scoreline. It's the whole story in 2 numbers.
It is.
You've got an attack that shows immense flair, real ruthlessness to put 4 past any Premier League side. But then you've got a defense that ships 4 in return. It just reveals this structural porous instability that is, frankly, reckless. The entire operation feels like it's leaning into a score 5, concede 4 mentality.
And that result is the perfect launchpad for our deep dive today, because the source material you've shared reveals a fascinating, really high-stakes tension within the club right now.
Right.
They're attempting to navigate the immediate demands of the January window, while at the same time plotting this massive, necessary structural overhaul for the summer.
So our mission, then, is to distill the expert opinions and, I think critically, the fan sentiment that's surrounding the next moves.
Yeah.
We're going to focus on the tension between the immediate sort of opportunistic target, Antoine Semenyo, and then the long-term structural midfield fix, which is exemplified by Elliot Anderson.
2 very different types of signing.
Completely.
Yeah.
And we need to analyze how pursuing a high-class attacker right now impacts the whole attack-first, worry-later philosophy under Amorim.
We're going to be drilling down into the tactics, the finance, the competition, so you can walk away with a clear understanding of why United are currently prioritizing flair over solidity and the significant gamble that represents.
Let's just stick with that snapshot for a moment, the Bournemouth game.
Okay.
Because it was pure chaos, a proper end-to-end spectacle.
It was.
And Antoine Semenyo, ironically, scored a terrific goal in that match.
Which only sharpened the appetite, I'm sure.
Of course. But beyond the goals, what was the actual feeling, the internal fan debate about conceding 4 in such a dramatic fashion?
Well, the reaction was complex. On one hand, you had a bit of resignation, but on the other, a surprising level of acceptance, even joy at the sheer entertainment value.
Really?
Joy.
Yeah, analysts were pointing out that the team is now thoroughly entertaining, which is a massive psychological shift from previous eras.
Oh, a huge shift.
I mean, think about it. Think about the excruciatingly slow passing cycles under Louis van Gaal, or the stifling defensive 1-0 games under Jose Mourinho.
God, yeah, they were dour. This is what you called it, flamenco football.
That's what it feels like.
I saw some fan quotes that were just wild. They're almost embracing the 6-5 scoreline as the path back to relevance.
One person said they had more fun watching the Bournemouth game than any of the defensive victories of the last 5 years, even though I died like 5 times from the stress.
And it's true, isn't it? That shift in mentality is crucial for understanding the current regime. They're essentially taking this glass cannon philosophy, maximum offensive output at the cost of defensive stability, to its logical extreme.
So the thinking is, if we're structurally vulnerable anyway,
we simply have to outscore the opposition. Now, critics will argue this is not the serious approach to winning the league, but a lot of the fan base is saying, look, if we're going to be inconsistent, we'd rather be this kind of exciting, chaotic, inconsistent.
An entertainment-first mandate, almost.
It seems to be trumping that deep-seated desire for defensive clean sheets, at least for now.
And that strategic mindset prioritizing elite talent and attack brings us perfectly to Section 1, Antoine Semenyo. This is the ultimate opportunistic signing, isn't it? Driven entirely by the dynamics of the winter market.
Indeed. And it's vital to establish the context of the January window here. Most top-tier clubs operate under the rule of thumb that you don't plan a winter transfer window. You react to sudden, unforeseen opportunities.
January is reactive, not strategic.
Exactly. You rarely get your primary summer targets unless a club is desperate or, in some kind of financial trouble.
And Semenyo's availability is the very definition of an opportunity that just suddenly materialized due to contract specifics. So what's the trigger here?
It's a very specific and very time-sensitive release clause. The sources reveal that Semenyo currently has a £65 million release clause embedded in his Bournemouth contract.
Okay.
And crucially, that clause is active right now, in January. This is the key window for United.
£65 million is a significant fee, obviously, but what makes this so urgent? Why now?
Well, that 65 million figure is a current price point, but it's set to drop later in the summer. So United have a very short window to secure him at what they perceive to be an advantageous, albeit high, January price.
Before other targets become available in the summer.
Precisely. The very existence of this January clause makes him available now, unlike almost every other high-level target they're looking at.
And this isn't a new crush for United either, is it? They've been tracking him for a long time.
That's right. Sources confirm that United wanted Semenyo last summer, but at that point, Bournemouth's asking price was prohibitive. It was reportedly north of £80 million,
Wow.
which United, quite rightly, balked at. Now, at $65 million, it's a much more palatable figure, especially given the competition and his proven Premier League ability.
So the pressure is on. This isn't a long, drawn-out negotiation. This has to be a surgical strike.
Exactly. The need for speed is palpable. The specific details in the source materials suggest that the $65 million clause is only active until around the 9th or 10th of January.
So not long at all.
No. We're talking about a window of perhaps 2 weeks from the start of the market. This forces United's hand. It has to be a smash-and-grab attempt, or they miss the opportunity entirely and have to hope he's still available next summer at the lower price.
And of course, United are not operating in a vacuum here. This is a high-level battle.
Oh, it's huge.
They are locked in what's being described as a four-way tussle with some of the biggest powerhouses in the Premier League: Manchester City, Tottenham, and Liverpool.
That's what elevates this from a simple transfer rumor to a genuine power play, isn't it? And let's start with the Manchester City angle, because United are reportedly trying to exploit something very subtle there.
And that is?
Managerial uncertainty.
Wait, Pep Guardiola is contracted until 2027, isn't he? How does uncertainty even factor in?
Well, Guardiola is locked down for a few more seasons. The sources indicate that City are already advancing contingency plans, quietly, beneath the surface. There is always that underlying question of whether he will commit to the full duration of the contract or if he might seek a new challenge earlier. And United are reportedly hoping to exploit this.
So the pitch to Semenyo is essentially, come to United, where the managerial future under Amorim, who has been highly complimentary of you, by the way, is stable, rather than going to City, where you might arrive just as the system and the boss is changing.
Precisely that. For a top-tier player who's plotting a 5-year move, the long-term stability of the manager is a major, often decisive factor.
Right.
United are reportedly going all out to sign him immediately, hoping that the slightest hint of potential instability at the Etihad is enough to tip the scales in their favor. It's a psychological lever in a high-pressure negotiation.
And then there's the Liverpool complication, which is less about managerial stability and more about a deep personal connection.
Yes, and that connection centers on Richard Hughes, Liverpool's sporting director.
Oh.
Hughes has history with Semenyo. He was the one responsible for signing him for Bournemouth 3 years ago, bringing him over from Bristol City for a bargain £10 million fee.
So Hughes knows the player intimately, trusts his character, and already has a working professional relationship with him. That's a massive unspoken advantage for Liverpool in a bidding war, isn't it?
It's huge, even if United are willing to meet the clause.
Yeah.
When players are deciding between 4 top clubs who can all offer comparable wages in European football, these personal relationships, the trust built over previous transfers, can be the tiebreaker. United must be keenly aware that if Liverpool truly push for this, Hughes' history with Semenyo could be a major hurdle.
But let's look at the timing again. Because regardless of the high-level competition, the short-term benefit for United is undeniable. And it's all thanks to the timing of the Africa Cup of Nations.
This is the most compelling, pragmatic argument for making the January move, for me. United is set to lose key players to AFCON. We're talking attacking threats like Brian Mbeumo and Amad Diallo, and potentially crucial defensive cover like Noussair Mazraoui.
And that happens right in the middle of a packed, difficult run of fixtures.
A terrible time to lose players. And normally, Semenyo, as a Ghana international, would also be unavailable. He'd be gone for the entire month.
Right, but he isn't.
Correct. Ghana's surprising failure to qualify for AFCON means Semenyo is available throughout January. So he provides immediate, high-level cover that compensates precisely for the loss of 2 key attackers.
At a period where they absolutely cannot afford to drop points.
Not if they want to stay in the running for a European spot. No. That availability is almost as valuable as the transfer fee itself in the short term. He fills an immediate glaring hole caused by international duty.
And it helps that the managers rate him so highly. We know that both Amorim and Guardiola have spoken incredibly highly of him.
Amorim has labeled him a special player, and Guardiola called him extraordinary. These are not light compliments coming from two of the world's most tactically astute managers.
No, absolutely not.
It confirms that United isn't simply buying a body. They are buying a highly rated, proven Premier League talent who just happens to be available at the perfect moment.
And he also has the temperament for the job, which is often crucial when we talk about the pressure cooker that is Old Trafford.
Well, this is a key point. The sources highlight his demonstrable resilience. They mention a specific high-pressure incident where he was racially abused on the pitch, and his response was immediate and visceral.
What did he do?
He scored a brace away at Anfield in the very next game.
Wow.
That shows genuine fight, character, and mental fortitude. So any argument that he lacks the necessary Manchester United mentality is, I think, thoroughly debunked by actions like that.
Okay, so the case for Semenyo in January is built on a perfect storm. A contract clause, AFCON availability, and proven high quality. But now we have to tackle the tactical elephant in the room. Which brings us to Section 2. Where does an extraordinary attacker fit when the primary need is defensive midfield?
This is the central strategic conundrum, isn't it? United needs structure, they need control, they need a proper defensive screen in midfield, but they are poised to buy another forward.
It seems counterintuitive.
It does, but the discussion revolves around Semenyo's highly valued, almost unique flexibility.
The sources suggest he can play 5 positions. That's remarkable versatility.
It's incredible. He is reportedly capable of slotting in at left wing back, right wing back, as a left 10, a right 10, or even as a central striker or a false 9.
Which is invaluable for a squad aiming to compete on multiple fronts.
Absolutely. It ensures that injuries or rotation don't compromise quality.
But the prevailing theory, the one that raises the most eyebrows among fans, is that he would start at left wing back, LWB. Can you walk us through how that position works in Amorim's system, the 3-4-2-1?
Certainly. This is where we need to dive into the tactical structure because it's anything but conventional. In Amorim's system, when the team attacks, it shifts from that 3-4-2-1 base into what is effectively a 3-2-5 formation.
A 3-2-5, so 5 players flooding the final third.
Exactly. And the LWB and RWB roles, the wide players in the 4, are not traditional fullbacks. They are expected to be wingers.
So if Semenyo is playing LWB, he isn't being asked to be Luke Shaw defensively.
Far from it. He's asked to be an attacking outlet. The system requires the LWB and RWB to be players who are comfortable beating their fullback and either delivering a cross, cutting inside to score, or, creating a goal.
So they get a lot of space.
They receive significant space and time on the ball because the entire defensive structure is shifted to cover the central threat. The role is high influence, but it's also high risk.
It sounds like United are basically looking for an attacking winger to play on the defensive line, but whose first thought is always offensive progression.
That is precisely the case. The system keeps the wingbacks incredibly wide, ensuring they stretch the opposition's defensive block. Fans have already dubbed this role as needing an Ahmad for the left side.
Right, referencing how Amad Diallo, who is fundamentally a winger, has excelled in that attacking RWB role on the right flank.
It's about link-up, pace, and individual quality in the wide channels. We've seen that link-up in action with Amorim's previous teams, specifically the connection between players like Trincao and Quenda at Sporting.
Where the 10 holds the width to allow the wingback space to cut in.
Yes, but while that sounds brilliant for the attack, it leads us directly back to the defensive nightmare.
It does. And this is the crux of the glass cannon debate. If United fields Semenyo at LWB and Ahmad at RWB both being highly offensive wingers, the consensus among analysts is that it would create a horrid defensive display.
You are deliberately undermining your defensive spine for offensive firepower.
What's the specific risk? Why does putting 2 wingers at wingback make the team so vulnerable?
Because when the team loses possession, both Semenyo and Ahmad have huge distances to track back. That leaves only 3 center backs and 2 holding midfielders, the 3-2 base against a rapid counterattack.
The space they leave behind must be catastrophic.
It is. The wingbacks are essential for pressing, but if they're too high and are easily beaten, the team becomes, as one source put it, way too vulnerable on the transition.
It's strategic suicide if the central midfield fails to provide control, isn't it?
It is.
The fans are clearly embracing the prospect of winning 6-5, but they're also acknowledging the structural vulnerability.
They are. They recognize it as a profound strategic risk, yet they seem willing to take it for the excitement and the goals. But, the stats back up the defensive concern.
Which are?
United conceding close to 30 goals at this stage of the season is universally labeled as borderline unacceptable for a club with European aspirations. The underlying data shows the attack is clicking, but the foundation is cracking.
Which highlights the luxury versus need argument perfectly. This is what's driving the fan debate.
Absolutely.
Semenyo is a class player, a massive signing achievement. But analysts like Carl Anka are adamant that this remains a luxury signing when the midfield and defense are in such obvious crisis.
And that's where we need to introduce the philosophy of the OKC way to understand the club's rationale.
Which is a reference to the NBA team, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Right. And the argument is simple. When elite talent becomes available, you buy it, regardless of your immediate positional need. You keep stacking picks.
So United is prioritizing accumulating top-tier talent over addressing the deepest structural flaw right now.
Exactly. The logic is that you should never sacrifice the opportunity to acquire elite quality, especially when it's made available at a unique price point via a release clause, simply because your current deepest need is at central midfield.
The goal is long-term depth.
Long-term depth for next season when United hopes to go deep in all 4 competitions. You buy the best available players now, and then you worry about where they fit later or how they enable the future sales of other players.
And this acquisition, Semenyo, is tied directly to the future of another forward currently in the squad, isn't it?
Yes. The sources suggest that the acquisition of Semenyo would almost certainly trigger the sale of Zirkzee.
Semenyo would effectively replace Zirkzee in the pecking order.
That's the thinking.
Why Zirkzee specifically? What is it about his profile or recent performance that puts him on his way out?
Well, Zirkzee is seen internally as a backup who hasn't quite demonstrated the intensity or the specific versatility required by Amorim's high-energy system. While he has moments of quality, he lacks the explosive pace and the positional fluidity that Semenyo offers across those 5 key roles. Semenyo is a direct upgrade in terms of attacking profile, adaptability, and pure speed.
Which makes Zirkzee surplus to requirements.
Especially if United needs to balance the books after a £65 million January outlay.
So Semenyo is seen as essential for depth and quality, potentially making the front 5, including Sesko, Kuna, Mbemo, and Ahmad, one of the most formidable attacks in the league next season.
A very versatile attack.
But let's pause on that attacking excitement, because we absolutely have to talk about the structural hole this signing won't fill.
And that's a good transition, because there is universal consensus among fans and analysts. The midfield is the main structural weakness. The Semenyo opportunity is distracting from this fundamental issue.
Fans are insistent. We need midfield first. The defensive problems, the porousness, the vulnerability on the transition, it all stems from the lack of control in the engine room.
No control is the phrase that keeps coming up.
They just can't keep hold of the ball in key phases of play. And if Semenyo is the immediate January opportunity, Elliot Anderson is the long-term structural project.
He is. The sources clearly identify Anderson as United's top target for midfield, or a primary midfield target next summer.
And United isn't looking for a single fix, are they? The expectation is a complete overhaul of that area.
That's right. John Cross, among others, reported that United is aiming for 2 big midfield signings in the summer window. Anderson is central to that plan. He's very highly rated among the multiple options they are tracking to reinforce that critical number 6 position.
But if he's the top target and United clearly have money, why can't they just move for him now, even if it meant paying a premium?
The market dynamics here are completely different from the Semenyo situation. It all comes down to Nottingham Forest's immediate predicament.
Their league position.
Exactly. They are currently too close to the relegation zone to risk losing a player of Anderson's quality. Even a massive offer, say £80 million, might not be enough to tempt them to sell in January.
Because their Premier League survival is financially more valuable than any incoming transfer fee.
Absolutely. The move is entirely dependent on summer availability.
Which puts immense pressure on United's performance between now and May. I've seen some fan theories suggesting that securing Champions League football is absolutely critical to landing targets like Anderson. Is that a realistic complication?
It is a huge complication. Top players like Anderson and the other elite midfield targets will have multiple suitors. Champions League football offers the prestige and the financial platform that can secure a deal over rivals.
And given United's current inconsistency.
And the leaky defense we've discussed,
Yeah.
fans are acknowledging that securing UCL qualification would be a massive achievement and certainly not easy, especially considering the disruptive AFCON absences and the current injury list.
So the ability to buy the players they need in the summer hinges on the entertainment continuing, but also critically on securing those high-stakes points.
That's the gamble.
Now, we must address the recent scrutiny Anderson has faced, because even COP targets aren't immune from high-level fan criticism.
No, he was definitely scrutinized following a recent match against Fulham where he was criticized for a really poor game, specifically concerning his passing execution.
And one fan quote was particularly jarring.
Mm-hmm.
They compared his passing to having the worst passes since Diana in that French tunnel.
Yes, that's a brutally specific and dark bit of British humor, isn't it? Often employed in football forums.
It is.
And while it demonstrates the unfair level of scrutiny young players face, and we must acknowledge the jarring nature of the reference, it confirms that even the top targets are under the microscope.
The slightest dip in form is immediately magnified.
By a desperate fan base, yes. Especially in core requirements like possession and distribution.
So while Anderson remains the priority, the club is clearly scouting alternatives, given the uncertainty of his summer availability. Who else is high on the list to bolster that midfield?
The sources confirm a broad, diligent scouting strategy for the number 6 position. Carles Baleba remains very high on the list, which suggests the club values his profile as a potential long-term anchor.
Okay.
Adam Wharton is also being looked at very closely. And the pursuit of Wharton could potentially impact how hard United pushes for Baleba later in the window.
And what about an immediate fix? Given that Anderson and Baleba are summer targets, waiting until then seems strategically untenable, doesn't it? The lack of control is costing them points right now.
It does. And this brings us back to the idea of a stopgap. Ruben Neves is mentioned as a potential loan option for January.
All right, I saw that.
Now, Amorim, by reputation, doesn't favor stopgaps or short-term fixes. He prefers players who fit the long-term vision.
What?
But the argument is that Casemiro desperately needs rotation, and the scarcity of long-term targets available this month makes a short-term quality option necessary.
Neves, with his proven Premier League experience and passing range, would be a solid, immediate quality injection.
It would be, provided United are willing to temporarily compromise on the long-term philosophy. It sounds like they are weighing pragmatism against ideological purity.
As you have to in January.
Precisely. If they can't get the perfect long-term fix now, they might need the necessary short-term stability to guarantee the European spot that makes the long-term fix possible in the first place.
Let's pivot back to the system. If Semenyo is a fast, flexible attacker, what is the ideal structural profile that Amorim's system demands from those two crucial central midfielders? You mentioned the Michael Carrick analogy. We need to go deep on that.
Absolutely. The manager's desired profile is highly specific and, it runs counter to the traditional box-to-box midfielder archetype that was so popular in England.
Yeah.
He wants 2 players who are athletic but also silky smooth on the ball. Their job is not to be tackling machines. Their job is to act as connectors and second-line ball retrievers.
What does a second-line ball retriever actually do? That sounds quite technical.
Their fundamental role is protection. They screen the back 3, allowing the attacking front 5, the Semenyo, Kuna, Mbemo axis, to thrive relentlessly up front without worrying about immediate defensive support.
So they need composure.
Immense composure and high-volume possession metrics. In that 3-2-5 attacking shape, these 2 midfielders just sit in the middle, not do too much, and control the game's rhythm while the front 5 generate the goals.
So they are the anchor in the engine room, providing stability and linking play, but they are absolutely not the creative focal point.
Whoa, because that is Bruno Fernandes' job from the 10 position.
Right.
And this is why the Michael Carrick analogy is so perfect and why it resonated so much with fans who understand the tactical shift.
Because Carrick was often underrated.
He was, especially in that era of high-profile goal-scoring box-to-box midfielders like Lampard and Gerrard. He wasn't flashy, he was the stabilizer.
So what specific qualities did Carrick possess that Amorim is looking for now?
It's all about possession volume and progressive passing. Carrick excelled at keeping the ball moving quickly, minimizing risk, and playing forward passes that broke the lines without being Hollywood long balls.
Hmm.
Amorim needs players who can execute this almost sleepwalking superb possession numbers and a high progressive pass volume. They don't need box-to-box dynamos who win the ball high up. They need players who can recycle possession under pressure and maintain the structural integrity of that 3-2 base.
That confirms the functional shift we saw earlier, doesn't it? The center backs, particularly the central one, are often the ones carrying the ball into the middle when the opposition sits back.
Yes, so the midfielders, therefore, need to be agile connectors, not static playmakers waiting for the ball. It's a hugely dynamic, sometimes mad system in theory.
But the key to making it work.
The key to making the 3-2-5 in attack work is having an elite athletic midfield base that acts as an almost unbreachable pivot. If the Semenyos and Amads of the world are going to attack relentlessly, they need the Andersons and Balibas of the world to provide that unyielding control and protection behind them.
And the current struggle is that they have the attackers, but not the control.
That's it in a nutshell.
That is a brilliant breakdown of the tactical requirements. Let's move on to Section 4, the wider implications of this high-risk transfer strategy. We need to compare the statistical reality of the attacking strength versus the defensive weakness.
And the numbers are stark. They really show a split identity. On the attack, the output is hugely improved. United is joint second highest scoring club in the league right now.
Which is a massive achievement.
It is. It demonstrates that Amorim's focus on offensive structure and pressing is clicking, even if individual players aren't putting up astronomical individual numbers.
And the sources point out that this output is sustained partially by their proficiency on set pieces, correct?
Yes, they are joint highest in the Premier League for set-piece goals, excluding penalties, alongside Arsenal. That suggests the coaching staff is implementing tactical details effectively, using every advantage to score goals.
Especially when the open play structure might be faltering due to that midfield weakness.
Exactly. But the flip side is the defense. We keep circling back to this. Conceding close to 30 goals at this stage is, as the sources state, borderline unacceptable.
It just fundamentally underlines the flaw in the current structure.
The attack is papering over a deep defensive crack. And the sources also confirm that the team conceded less when key personnel like the injured De Ligt and Harry Maguire were consistently in the squad.
Which just highlights the severity of the injury impact.
And the reliance on those specific players, getting those senior defenders back, is paramount to even marginally reducing the porousness of the backline.
Okay, let's address the big psychological question now. The mentality debate. Whenever United locks horns with Manchester City for a top player like Semenyo, this question resurfaces.
It always does.
Why would a player choose the glass cannon United, which offers no silverware certainty right now, over City, who offer a near certainty of trophies at the Etihad?
It's the classic footballing dilemma, isn't it? Guaranteed playtime versus guaranteed trophies. For players who choose to sign for United, the sources suggest they are often motivated by the challenge.
The narrative.
The narrative. They view it as a chance to be part of the historic story, to be one of the figures who helps bring glory back to Manchester United. It's an emotional pull, the chance to be a difference maker rather than just another squad rotation player.
It's the desire to be a hero in a struggling side, rather than a cog in a flawless machine.
That's it. And contrast that with Manchester City. If Semenyo signs there, he competes with Doku, Foden, Cherki, a whole roster of world-class attackers.
There's a genuine risk.
A genuine high risk of becoming the next Calvin Phillips, spending most weekends on the bench or outside the matchday squad. United, even without the guaranteed trophies right now, offers guaranteed starting time.
And a chance to be central to the project.
And the chance to push immediately for European football and minor domestic trophies. For a player who prioritizes playing regular, high-level Premier League football, United becomes a far more attractive proposition.
We touched on the Manchester United mentality argument earlier, which sometimes flares up when the club signs a player who hasn't been a traditional Big Six target. Are there still fans clinging to the idea that Semenyo might not possess the right fit?
There are, but the counter-arguments are robust and, I think, necessary. One fan quote summed up the pragmatic shift perfectly. It isn't 2013 anymore.
Fair enough.
The idea that Manchester United requires some unique, intangible mentality that other top clubs don't is, frankly, outdated nonsense. If a player is good enough for Arsenal or Liverpool, they are certainly good enough for United.
And more importantly, Semenyo's actions speak volumes, don't they? His resilience after that racial abuse incident is the very definition of mental toughness and fight.
It is. If you demonstrate that kind of fight and commitment to overcome adversity and perform under that kind of pressure, you have the right mindset, regardless of where you played before. The new United mentality must be about high performance and resilience, not some romanticized notion of history.
Okay, so let's wrap this up and summarize the key strategic takeaways from this deep dive into the source material.
Well, the current situation is defined by a deep tactical conflict and a clear short-term priority. The January focus is entirely on Antoine Semenyo.
Driven by that unique release clause.
That unique, opportunistic, £65 million release clause and the urgent need for AFCON cover to sustain the attacking momentum. The club is actively prioritizing short-term depth and opportunity over immediate structural fixes.
And meanwhile, the long-term structural fix, the deep necessary surgery, is punted to the summer.
It has to be. Elliot Anderson and the dedicated central midfielder targets like Baliba or Wharton must wait, purely because their current clubs won't sell quality players mid-season, particularly when relegation is a threat.
The outlook for the attack, however, is electrifying if this comes off.
Oh, absolutely. If Semenyo signs, the front five options, Semenyo, Cunha, Mbeumo, Sesko, and Ahmad, would be among the most versatile and unpredictable groups in European football. This would transform the team into Chance Creation FC, built on speed, power, and positional interchange.
So if we connect this all back to the bigger picture for you, the listener, what is the fundamental gamble the club is taking by pursuing this high-risk strategy?
They are betting that elite attacking quality and increased squad depth will successfully paper over the defensive cracks long enough to secure European football.
Ideally, Champions League qualification.
That's the one. If they achieve that crucial step, it guarantees the financial and competitive footing necessary to afford and attract those high-fee summer midfield signings like Anderson and the two central players they need.
So this transfer window is less about fixing the system.
And more about guaranteeing the ability to fix the system later. It is a high-stakes, maximum excitement gamble.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, as you mull over the risk and reward of the glass cannon philosophy. Is winning 6-5 truly the path back to the top of English football? Or is this merely highly entertaining flamenco that will ultimately fall short of Champions League aspirations? And should United risk signing a player of Semenyo's caliber, potentially compromising his long-term effectiveness by forcing him into a left wing-back role he hasn't consistently played, just because this unique opportunity arose? It's a question of philosophical commitment versus immediate pragmatism, something to seriously consider before that January 9th deadline arrives.